So on the FedRAMP 20X changes overall, then, like Kenny mentioned, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of, and probably more so than misinformation, it's really misunderstanding or like assumptions that are coming out. So, like, in your summary, how do you understand the changes?
Um, they want to get rid of the sponsorship for the low impact systems. We've already talked about that and what my feelings are there. But everything else that they're doing, they're just, to me, they're just it's like wiping the dirt off a pig. That's all they're really doing is just making my pig nice and shiny again, because nothing's really changing. Nothing is changing.
Mm, okay. So if nothing's really changing, like what are some of the things that you do like about where Pete's taking this? Because there's a lot of stuff for me. Like the thing that really resonated for me is I grew up coding systems in cloud, right? I never did some like deployment. I never did program something and put it on a CD, right? So that it could be installed like on a system. Everything has been very ephemeral for the last 2 decades, really, like since the advent of the cloud, right? So I like the idea that we can maybe leverage more automation around, that kind of matches the ephemeral nature of cloud systems. Some of the old, audit methods, you know, cater to the old ways, right,
Yeah,
of
it
doing it,
does. It
which is
does.
really tough, right?
It is, and
So,
and the value is not as good.
right,
I'll admit that.
right. You're forced to describe a system that existed, like, maybe existed 2 years ago,
Right,
right? And so
right.
that's what needs to change. And I think, I don't know, that's what one of the things that we're trying to solve. That's part of our mission here at Peramify. It's not an easy nut to crack, not at all.
No, but I'll tell you the things that I do like, that he's doing to address this issue is the use of AI to go out and try to automate some of the, well, a lot of the processes, that go on, but also being able to get real time data, you know, that an assessor can look at. And it's not a screenshot, it's like a JSON output, you know, and OSCAL is critical, to moving it forward. But the fact that they can do that now, they couldn't do that then, but they can do that now. I'm not sure, where AI is. I'm not an AI guy. I mean, my intelligence is fine with me. I don't need any artificial stuff going on. So, I like what he's doing. I hope it bears fruit. I really do because I see that will make everybody's life so much easier, and it makes sponsorship less of a problem. Because now I have real time evidence that, yeah, you're doing what you're doing, and I can look at it from a PMO perspective or an AO perspective and say, you know, I can look at this and understand exactly what this risk posture of this system is today. And I'm going to get continuous reports that tell me what it's going to be like next month and so on. That part, awesome. I hear so many people complaining about, well, screenshots and, shoulder surfing and, it's not going to work. And, they get up on this bully pulpit and I'm like, well, yeah, but at the time, that's all we had.
That's all
That's
we
all we
had.
had. But now,
Yeah.
we can go a little more confidently to the automation side. And that's where I think, GRC tools are going to be a huge help to streamline the overall process. Not so much in it, in reducing the time that it takes to develop the documentation, which is great, but how we can, you can automate workflows, which we couldn't do before. Now if I have to make a change, I've got a definitive workflow that has to go through. And at each of those steps, there's evidence, So if you're doing incident response activities, training, or you're running tabletop exercises and stuff like that, all of those workflows, every one of them, there's an evidence of that. So that me as an assessor, when I walk in, I don't have to get, okay, show me the printout of your last incident response tabletop exercise. You know, I can look at it and say, nope, this is evidence that they actually did it. And from an assessor's perspective, it means that companies can't bully an assessor into accepting something, based on their interpretation of what they see, because this is clear as day, you know.
Makes
I
it more
can
black
see
and white.
what all those parameters are, so
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how that shakes out.
That will be very cool. That is one of the things we love about the changes too, is we've kind of always said one of the first things Kenny told me when I joined Paramify is you got to remember security is the goal, compliance is just the outcome.
Yep.
And Pete said it perfect. He said the less time we spend on this theater of compliance, the more we can spend on actual, security. So yeah, we love that too. That'll be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. He kind of lost me on that one.
Lost down a little bit.
Yeah, he kinda lost me on that. There's 2 things he said and, that he kinda lost me on, but one was a perspective, and that everybody has their own, but that was the one thing, 'cause so I started out at a time where engineers as a whole, they hated the compliance team. It's nothing but a paperwork exercise, blah, blah, blah. You wanna see me get fired up, call it a paperwork exercise, you know?
I love
Because,
it.
I looked at it and said, it's not. If you can't document what you have, how do you know you have it? You know, that was always my thinking on that. And I've kept telling everybody, if you can tell a story of this is my network and this is how I'm securing it, and this is the things we do over time, and these things get better and better and better over time, then there's a lot of value there. And together, you security and compliance should be like hand in glove. Because I've seen a lot of companies who are who have implemented security and are not compliant. But I've never seen a company who was completely compliant who didn't implement security. Now, keep in mind that all of these frameworks are bare minimum requirements. You're allowed to do more. You're encouraged to do more, you know. But if we have to fight this hard to do the minimum, how the heck are you going to be able to raise the bar? And I think that's one of the reasons FedRAMP has not raised that bar any higher, because we set a high one and we're driving everybody to that, but they struggle at every level.
Mhm.